fans, and thanks for joining us for another edition of All 90s Action All the Time. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Murphy, and on today's episode, we continue our 90s Seagal season with Out for Justice. As always, to help me delve into this film, we have my co-host, a man who's never been known to be outmanned or outgunned, very much the Mason Storm of this podcast. It's Mr. Kyle Hintz. Hi, Kyle.
Thank you. That's the best intro. Thank you.
That's no problem. And later on this season, we will also be joined by Mr. Craig Draheim, but you will have to wait for his debut. Anyway, we should probably get on to today's film, 1991's Out for Justice, so celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, which was directed by John Flynn, a director who made his reputation in the 70s with kind of hard-boiled crime action flicks, The Outfit, which was a Parker novel adaptation, and the Vietnam revenge film Rolling Thunder, both of which are supposed to be pretty decent, but I've not actually seen them, so I cannot confirm nor deny whether
I can highly recommend Rolling Thunder.
Okay,
it's wonderful.
Excellent. Also, he previously worked with another big action star in his previous film because he directed the lesser-known Sylvester Stallone film Lock Up in 1989, 2 years prior to this. And as well as that, the script was written by R. Lance Hill under his pseudonym David Lee Henry, and his previous credits had included the Jeff Bridges neo-noir 8 Million Ways to Die and that Patrick Swayze classic Roadhouse. So you know that this is high-quality dialogue coming your way. The movie currently holds a 6.1 on IMDb, 23% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 22 reviews, 38% on Metacritic based on 12 reviews, and a 2.9 on Letterboxd. Although, I should also point out that Chief Seagalogist Outlaw Vern, along with many Seagal fans, consider this to be his best film that he's ever made.
I have to echo that.
Well, you've given a spoiler, Kyle. Like at the end of this season, we're going to do our best and worst of like our favorite and least favorite 90s Seagal film. But now you've jumped the gun and you've told the audience what your favorite one is now. So
well, to be fair, I haven't seen most of the late 90s stuff in forever, so I may change my mind.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Fire Down Below is going to jump jump to the top of the queue.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. I don't know why I'm picking on Fire Down Below. There is a couple of worse entries that we're going to cover, but I won't spoil what my least favorite is or what my favorite is. And before we do talk about the movie, and there will be, I've not given it the last two episodes, so I should really do it this time. I should give a big spoiler review. A spoiler review? Not a spoiler review. A spoiler warning, even. In that, yes, this podcast does plot summaries of the movies that we cover. So therefore, if you've not seen the movie, go check it out and then come back and then listen to this, because we're going to talk about the movie. Yeah, and we're in depth. So like, if you want to avoid that, just come back. Just watch it, come back, and then listen. Also, before we, dig into the plot of the movie, this is, I should say, a little bit of a departure for Seagal. People often say that Seagal always makes the same movie, but this one is a little bit different. It's got a little bit of a grittier tone and look. There's plenty of Seagal silliness that we'll get to, but it is a little bit different. And obviously, the director has a kind of hard-boiled background. It's given a little bit more of a kind of washed out look. The cinematography was done by a guy called Rick Waite, who had previously done cinematography on the likes of Cobra and 48 Hours, which kind of makes sense. So yeah, it's a little bit different to your average Seagal film.
Yeah, it's not quite as slick as some of the other ones feel.
Yeah, it's a bit more kind of rough around the edges, and I think some people in reviews have said that it's almost like they're kind of his take on like a kind of Scorsese picture, because even William Forsythe, who plays the main villain, Richie Madano, he said the original script for the movie, before they kind of added lots of the kind of Seagal action scenes and stuff like that, had a kind of Mean Streets vibe to it. That's why I read an interview with them that said that.
And then they just drained that vibe out of the script.
I suppose, like, in the kind of barest bones of, like, like friends turned enemies in a New York neighborhood,
the madness of William Forsythe's character, kind of, and all the Italian stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I suppose at this point we should get into the plot of the movie. But before we start that, as the movie opens, it opens in absurdly pretentious fashion for an action movie with a quote from Arthur Miller, which I wrote down. Says, while to the strangers, I on the street was no different. One street was no different from another. We all knew where our neighborhood. People can't see me doing the little quotation mark fingers, so that's in quotation marks. Somehow ended. Beyond that, a person was ... a stranger. Arthur Miller. And then it says like play right, raised in Brooklyn. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't expect that from a Seagal movie, do you?
Don't expect that to make sense by the end of it.
Oh, no, not at all. I suppose there's something to do with, being all about this one neighborhood and everybody's connected, and I mean, it doesn't add up to a hill of beans, really. I think they just wanted to stick an Arthur Miller quote in there to kind of give full profundity, full credibility, make them look a bit more serious than they are, maybe. Although I do get the sense that probably there was different visions for this film, like based on John Flynn, the director's previous back catalogue. You would assume that he was looking to do something a bit more hard-boiled and gritty, which he kind of gets, and then probably Seagal pushed the movie in a certain direction, which he had the power to do as one of the producers on the movie.
Yeah. Well, that, and based on what you were just saying about the script supposedly being more like Mean Streets, then it would make sense, because there's those hints of all this backstory, but it doesn't really become front and center.
Yeah, well, apparently there was some kind of butting heads with the studio as well. So the film was originally titled The Price of Our Blood, which was actually one of the few things that Seagal and the director agreed on, that they both liked this title, The Price of Our Blood. And the studio didn't like the title and wanted to stick with the kind of 3-word formula that had been such a hit in Seagal's other pictures. So they changed the title for Out for Justice. And John Flynn's original cut of the movie was longer, substantially longer. Okay. It was about 2 hours, so it's like half an hour longer. So apparently you do get more kind of character detail and background, and basically more plot. It's a less streamlined movie. This is a very streamlined movie.
That's cool. Well, yeah, I would watch that extra 30 minutes for this movie, I think.
Yeah. So apparently you do get more on like Richie and stuff, and that was kind of one of the other interesting things that came out of looking into this movie a bit, researching this movie a bit, was apparently Seagal got them to cut a few scenes from the movie because he was basically scared that William Forsythe was stealing his thunder and wanted less William Forsythe.
Oh, wow. Well, that's, totally understandable, because William Forsythe is an actor and Steven Seagal.
Yes. Yes, like I have to say, like you can make fun of this movie in many ways, but Williams Forsythe's performance is objectively great.
Yes, it's fucking insane. It's one of those performances like because he reminds me of a Gary Busey kind of guy or one of those guys that's kind of gone nuts. It's one of those performances where you're like, is this where it happened? Is this where it started? Did you play this character and then just start to fucking lose it?
I very much know what you mean. Like, I mean, William Forsythe often plays characters like this. I mean, like, he is equally intense in, like, when he's playing that sheriff character in The Devil's Rejects.
Oh, yes.
That is a fucking performance in that movie as well.
It's underrated. And I think that's, like, his last really great acting role.
Yeah, that's, like, that's the last kind of tour de force performance that I saw by him, I have to say.
Yeah.
But he's really great in that. We should probably get into what happens in this movie and what happens to these characters. So the movie, as all Seagal movies at this point anyway, has like a really strong opening scene. We've had a couple of both Hard to Kill and Marked for Death had strong opening scenes. We obviously had the liquor store fight in Hard to Kill, and then we had the chasing Danny trio through Colombia thing, and then the drug deal going wrong in Marked for Death. And in this one, so Seagal's character, Detective Gino Fellino, there's lots of very on-the-nose Italian-American names in this. We'll get into that more. And his partner, Bobby Lupo, that's that type of film. They're sitting in a van. They're obviously staking something out. There is some sort of operation going on, some sort of bust going on, but basically Seagal spots a pimp beating up a prostitute, and he is incensed by this, and he basically jumps the gun on this bust because he is so just angry about this woman being beat up in quite an unflinchingly brutal scene. Like the I don't know who the actor is who played the pimp, but he really plays a shithead quite well, convincingly anyway. And it's an intense scene. And there's one point he just like full blown punches this woman in the face. It looks absolutely really horrible and ugly. But then Seagal comes onto the scene, and it becomes much more of a just kind of silly action thing where he's like, hey, stop picking on that woman. Like slapping around women. Why not try slapping around me? And then, of course, that guy gets beaten up. He gets his head put through a car window, and then he gets backdropped through the windshield of a car. So we're all only like 5 minutes into this movie, and we've already had 2 glass breaks. So that's classic Seagal.
Yes, it is. And then we get maybe the best Steven Seagal title card ever, right after he puts him through the windshield. After he puts him through the windshield, and we see through like the car window or whatever, Seagal, freeze frame, Steven Seagal. And then the title of the movie is like,
And then the title of the movie just kind of, with a clanking sound, comes down, Out for Justice. And I love that this movie, on the posters and on the DVD cover, they got the trick that the other movies missed. Like Hard to Kill, it should have had an is there. Yeah, and Marked for Death, probably the same. But on Out for Justice, it does. On the DVD cover, it does have the is. Steven Seagal is out for justice.
That's awesome.
So they got this one. Yeah, I would agree. It's the best title card of his movies. But I mean, it's really good. If you're an action fan and you're not fist pumping at that, like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, you're dead inside.
That's the official opinion of this podcast. What's the beginning in this movie? And if you're not jumping out of your seat, then you're dead inside. That's what's happening. So yeah, after that, that's basically what main plot of the movie begins, where the main villain, Richie Madano, played by William Forsythe, he shoots Steven Seagal's partner, or should I say, Detective Gino Fellino's partner, Bobby, in the street in front of his wife and kids in absolutely brutal fashion. I didn't count how many times he shot him, but he shot him a lot.
And then he spit on him, and then he threw a Polaroid picture on him that will be important later.
Yes, which will be an important plot point later. But at this point, not so much. Not so much. And then like we get a very brief scene of Seagal being a responsible parent, where he asks his son, has he done his homework? Like, basically, his son says, oh, can we go out and play catch? And Seagal says, have you done your homework? And the son says, no. And Seagal goes, okay, go and get your ball and bat then. Responsible parenting from Seagal there. Yeah, fuck
Always.
Homework. Baseball's more important than homework.
Well, and we must note that now Steven Seagal is in this great sleeveless shirt that's going to keep coming back up.
Yes, it is. Oh, we should also note that in this opening scene, Seagal speaks in his normal speaking voice. Not something he does throughout the movie, but we'll get to that in a minute. The next kind of point is like, just again, we have the we've already seen Richie being a maniac by shooting Bobby several times and then spitting on him. So we've already established, oh, this guy's evil, this guy's the main villain. But then we see him getting away in a car with his thugs, and he just lights up a crack pipe. He takes a post-assassination hit of the crack pipe, and then they get stuck in traffic, and there is a woman who starts shouting at him, and he just gets out of the car, grabs the woman by the hair, shoots her in the face, and then jumps back in the car with his goons. Just so you know, 100%, this guy is evil with a capital E.
Yes, he is. He's totally fucking lost it. And not only that, we have all of his goons too are let us know that he shouldn't have just killed Bobby Lupo. He shouldn't have killed this woman. That he's like, even they are shocked by his evilness.
Yeah. I know. And like, even his, like, he's an interesting villain because like he's not got a plan. There is no plan for world domination. There is no plan to take over the neighborhood. There's no plan for anything. He just wants to kill Bobby and then just go on a murder rampage and believes that he's going to die at the end of the day, because this movie basically takes course over like 24 hours.
Which is weird because there is a montage a little bit later that feels like a passage of time. And then you find out again that it's still just the same day. I'm like, wait, what?
Yes, it does. There is an investigation montage later on that you think like, oh, right, they've been gathering evidence for a few. No, all right, that happened over the course of an hour or something. I don't know. It's all a bit confusing. But yeah, his goons seem scared of him, like, because in the kind of first scene that we see Richie, he's like takes out a bunch of money and says like, oh, if you can get to the end of the night, you can have this money. And one of the goons says, well, how long can the night be? Turns out very, very, long. Very long. And
one of these goons we should mention, you mentioned the liquor store robbery. And
that is true.
Yes, the leader of that gang is now a member of William Forsythe's gang, so he's moving on up.
Yes, that is very true. So Robert Lasardo, he who we last saw getting his ankle snapped off in a liquor store, is back in this movie as another thug who is, well, he's not going to make it to the end. He's not, but he make it further. He makes it much further than he did in Hard to Kill. So progressing really, it's a step up. Yeah. So now we have to address various things about Seagal, because we get a scene at the crime scene where he arrives in the crime scene in the cut-off shirt that we had previously seen him, but also now with a beret as well. And at this point, we introduce the fact that Steven Seagal tries out an accent for about half the movie, and it is the most bada bing Brooklyn parody accent you've ever heard, and it's made even funnier by the fact that in the first couple of scenes you see him, he's just using his normal voice. He's not doing an accent. It's not until the crime scene. I didn't notice the accent coming in until the crime scene.
I feel like I noticed it before, but it's hard to tell because, like you say, he's doing it half the time because his accent is very much connected to it's more like connected to phrases because he's always like this guy over here and that guy over there, and like he goes in and out of it a lot.
Yeah, he does. That is true because it can be. He's not even consistent in the same sentence. You know, sometimes he's talking in his normal voice for a bit, and then he's suddenly talking about Richie, and you're like, what? Like, yeah, you don't know about the neighborhood. And then he just goes back to his normal voice, and you're just like, what? There's no tracking this. Like, what?
Yeah, it's a futile enterprise. And it's even more funny, too, because there's also New York actors in this movie who are just from New York.
Yes. Yeah. No. Apparently, I was in that same William Forsythe thing where he was talking about the Mean Streets vibe of the early drafts. Apparently, he had a conversation with Seagal where Seagal was saying to him he needed to work on his Brooklyn accent. And Forsythe was like, yeah, you need to work on it.
And that's perfect Seagal fashion. I can just imagine him telling other people they need to work on their acting and shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh dear. There's many fun moments like that. And obviously, because I mean, this is kind of part action movie, part kind of mob drama, and we've got the kind of pretty much the most stereotypical bunch of New York mafiosos that you can see on screen.
Yes, and interestingly enough, they're not even like the villain. Like they're supposedly involved with William Forsythe, but then you kind of find out not at all, and they just want to kill him too, basically.
So yes, it's suggested that, like, that's the other thing. Like, Richie isn't like the big bad. It's suggested that he's essentially a mafia henchman. He's just like kind of one of the goons, and he's gone off the rails. So he's not even like a kind of big boss figure, because like in the scene, basically the next scene, we get Seagal visiting one of the big boss figures, a guy called Don Vitrio, who, yeah, they have a conversation, and Don Vitrio basically says that it's like bad PR for them, so like they want him wiped out as much as Gino wants him wiped out. So yeah, everybody's gunning for Richie. The police says Gino in his one-man crusade, and the mob are out to get him as well.
Which makes it all the more interesting that like it takes them that long to find this guy, because he's not a savvy criminal. He's just running around like a maniac the whole time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's just on a rampage the whole time, killing people in plain view, plain sight. And no, you think, and he's obviously just roaming around this one neighborhood. So you honestly think that the kind of net would have closed in on him a bit quicker than it does in the movie.
But no.
Oh, I should mention as well, one thing that didn't entertain me in the Don Vitrio scene that is just kind of like a random moment, but it's just one of the many absurdities of this movie. There is a character called Sammy who he meets at the front door of Don Vitrio's restaurant, and Sammy says to Steven Seagal, "Hey, you still combing your hair like a girl?" And that would be kind of one of those dickhead lines that are kind of like, like this obviously shows the character is a bit of a dickhead, and maybe he'll get beaten up later on. But the line just doesn't make any sense because the character Sammy has his hair gelled back in the exact same way as Seagal. It's like he's insulting himself.
That's true. I didn't think about that. I like that it's one of the few ones that Seagal doesn't retort. He just kind of keeps walking, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, no, he's just like too busy. He's on his path of vengeance at that time, and like he stops his path of vengeance. He has a bit of many detours on his path of vengeance, but in that opportunity to say a one-liner, he casually declines and just gets on with his business. So yeah. Usually you would expect a kind of smart-ass retort from Seagal, but no. He just lets that one lie. So he actually was the bigger man that time. One of the very few times you see that on screen.
The only time that I can think of.
Possibly the only time, yeah. But Don Vitrio as well in this scene actually says the original title, The Price of Our Blood.
Does he?
Yeah, he does. It does. Because I read the thing about The Price of Our Blood, it stuck out in my mind.
Okay. Well, and also, so we do get Seagal speaking Italian, or at least what's supposed to be Italian, in this sit down with Don Vitrio, which is pretty great. It's another moment of like Seagal egoism, trying to show off his language skills.
Oh yeah, no, there's you got to love a bit of that, where Seagal has to show off his many skills. It's like, oh, have I told you I can do acupuncture? Let me show you on screen. Oh, do you know that I speak a little bit of Italian, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese? Yeah, we know, Stephen. It's very impressive. We're all very impressed.
He's a man of just many cultures.
He is indeed. This is kind of off topic, but I recently watched one of his direct-to-video efforts, Urban Justice, and one of the cringiest elements of that is whenever he's interacting with a black character, he starts imitating that kind of lingo.
Yes.
And he does that in Half Past Dead as well. And it's just like, it's like there's like a kind of osmosis thing where he has to interact with any other culture in the exact same way as that culture. And it comes off as incredibly cringy and terrible, but I don't know why. I mean, again, it might just be the egotism thing of like, I can fit in with any culture. I am a worldly man, and I can just fit in right in there.
Yeah, it's weird. It's also it's all over Steven Seagal Lawman. That's the best part of that show. Is the same thing.
Oh yeah, when he's talking to all the again, it kind of shows it weirdly for such a stupid show. It kind of shows the injustice of the American justice system of like it tends to be young black male. It's almost entirely young black males that they arrest on the many kind of drug busts and stuff that they do throughout the show.
And it really does. It's pretty depressing.
Yeah, it
shows the bad American law enforcement and just Steven Seagal's ridiculousness.
Anyway, back to cheerier shores. Back to this movie, because like at this point we get the most absurd element of the movie is coming up when Seagal is driving along. He sees another car that the driver throws a black bag out of his window, and Seagal stops, pulls his car over, inspects the black bag, sees it is moving, opens the black bag, and what's in the black bag? What's in the black bag, Kyle?
A little German Shepherd puppy. It's so sad. It's such a nice little puppy. And yes.
And then Seagal says, I hope to God I meet that guy again one day. And you think like, oh, this is just like a kind of little fun moment where we show that Gino, despite all his violence, is essentially a good man. And that's the only point of this scene. It's not. there's an entire subplot which we'll get into, but it's why there's a subplot nobody knows. That I feel like this must have been something Seagal shoehorned in of being like, well, I'm an animal lover and I want to show that as well.
It's got to be. Because, yeah, when you think about it in the context of the whole narrative and him being relentlessly driven to justice, this is not important to anything.
Not at all. We do get quite a cool scene coming up next, though, because we just get like Seagal cruising around town looking for Richie to the soundtrack of No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Yes. That must have been a big hit at the time. That feels like a very we've got to capitalize on the moment song choice.
Yeah, I mean,
it works.
I mean, it does work. You know, like a little bit of Beastie Boys. I'm not going to lie. It
goes a long way
thing for me. Yeah. For sure. I'm not going to crap on that decision. You know, like Beastie Boys on your soundtrack, cool. Yeah, like. But again, like he has these kind of detours from his path of vengeance that are a bit weird. You know, like he pulls over, talks to a guy,
yes.
Buys a 6-pack of seltzer from him because if you're on the path of vengeance, you got to keep yourself hydrated.
Yes, it feels like the tangent we were just talking about. Though it does feel like. These little detours are just for Seagal to move in and out of other little worlds and show how like cool he is, that he can kind of blend in everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then also we get an utterly bizarre moment where a prostitute propositions him by the side of the road, and he just finds it hilarious, like really, really hilarious.
That's just because he's that virile, Scott. I mean, it's comical to him because women are throwing themselves at him all day.
Yes. As we previously discussed in Marked for Death, where the professor of whatever she was the professor of just instantly fell in love with him.
Yeah, it's a tough life.
It's hard. It's hard for the guy. Oh dear. But he does eventually, after all this fucking about, laughing about hookers and trying to get them, like homeless guys in on the joke and buying a 6-pack of seltzer and all that. He does finally spot Richie in a car, and then we get quite a fun car chase. And I feel like, again, this kind of notifies the difference from his last couple of movies, because the car chase in Marked for Death is like just this kind of ridiculous action movie car chase, very early 90s. And you can kind of sense, even though it is equally ridiculous, you can kind of sense that the director is going for a kind of slightly grittier kind of French Connection style car chase in this movie. It's not like on the sidewalk, people diving out the way, like busting over various things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty gritty. And especially with Steven Seagal driving sort of under this, he's like under this bridge that has these support beam, like concrete beams or whatever, but like I guess they're little pieces of sidewalk, but he's just going over like a ridiculous amount of bumps and destroying the shocks of this car.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of that, the car really shouldn't be going anywhere.
But it's Seagal's car, so it is.
Yeah, because
it's unstoppable.
The car is also extra virile, so it can just go, it can plow through those. Yeah, because it goes under this bridge for like an elevated train, and just bouncing off these kind of pavement bits. But it continues on its way. Oh, but this is one of our first really good fight scenes. There is a bunch of as much as we're making fun of this movie and its various absurdities, there is some very good fight scenes in this movie, and one of them is coming up. Basically, Richie and the guys they pull over the car and they run into a butcher shop, and because basically every second person in this neighborhood is a mafioso or associated to the mafia, realism. Like, yeah, they go in, they collect some bullets from this butcher, and then they, like, basically Richie says to the guys in the butcher shop, hang up on a meat hook, like, kill this guy. And then we get a classic Seagal action sequence. Do you want to break this one down? I'll give you this one.
We just get a great butcher fight. So these guys just wait to ambush Seagal, and we get a lot of meat cleavers in the hand. Yeah, you can break it down beat by beat.
Well, I do love that. So there is a guy standing waiting to surprise Seagal with a meat cleaver, and he has no success in this because he does not surprise Seagal. Seagal immediately sidesteps him and puts the meat cleaver that he has in his hand into his leg. And then he takes that same meat cleaver, like after beating up another guy, he takes the meat cleaver out of one guy's leg and implants it in another guy's hand. And it's top drawer entertainment, almost as top drawer entertainment as the next guy that he beats up, where he's explaining to the guy, like, hey, like, Richie's a bad guy, like, my friends don't like him, your friends don't like him, I think you're hanging out with the wrong people, and then proceeds to bat him over the head with a big sausage. Which is not a metaphor for anything. That is literally what happened. They're in the butcher shop. He bats him over the head with a big sausage. It's
pretty priceless. It's also amazing that I guess they're underworld figures, but I don't feel like Richie's gang is that large.
No.
But they're loyal to him enough that he can literally run in and say, hey, kill this guy, and then run out the other door and leave, and knows that they're going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the neighborhood. That
is the neighborhood. We should also mention this also has a kind of classic. I mean, apart from that, where he's just hits the guy with the sausage, it has another classic Seagal being a smarmy asshole moment where he's like talking to the butcher guy who pulls a gun on him, and he just kind of talks him down and just being like, why you gotta be a bad guy like that? Why don't you be a good guy? And then, like, just twists his wrist off, and then, takes the gun off him and just casually strolls out the shop because Seagal is that much of a badass.
Yes, he is. Anyone else would have gotten shot because that guy had ample opportunity.
I think there's a scene coming up as well where Richie visits, like, well, not a girlfriend, but like a woman who we seem to believe was a prostitute but now isn't a prostitute, and it doesn't really further the plot any, but it is interesting to mention because the actress who plays this character is Juliana Margulies in her debut film role, and then of course she would go on to fame in the likes of ER and The Good Wife. So I'm sure this is still high up on her CV, but ER.
Some of her best work, yeah.
It's right up there. Oh yeah. So and then just not long after that, we get possibly the greatest fight scene in Seagal's career. The bar.
Yes.
So there is a bar that is owned by Richie's brother, Vinny. Now, Vinny Madano is played by Anthony DeSando, and he's already been roughed up a bit. He's already been visited by the mob because, they want Richie, as we've said, they want Richie as well. So they're kind of looking for Richie like everybody is, and think that Vinny knows where he is. And Vinny denies any knowledge of Richie, of knowing his whereabouts at all. But they kind of threaten him and say they'll come back. But then Seagal comes in, and he also demands to know where Richie is and believes that Vinny knows his whereabouts. But apparently Vinny does not. Whether he does or not is unclear. Whether he's just trying to be loyal to his brother, but we kind of assume that he actually doesn't. But I mean, if the butcher shop had a little bit of classic Seagal being a smarmy asshole, well, oh boy, this scene is just full of it.
It's the ultimate smarminess. He throws a guy, as we go into this back and forth of has anybody seen Richie who killed Bobby Lupo? Why did he kill him? He is throwing these goons around so casually, throwing a guy in a phone booth. Like, I feel like he slaps another guy.
He kicks a guy off a stool.
Yes. He goes behind the bar and just starts tossing everybody's drinks all over the place.
And one of the funniest Seagal being a smarmy asshole is like after he like knocks the drinks off the top of the bar, he just grabs a hot dog and goes, whose hot dog is this? And then just throws it at some random people.
Oh, he's such an asshole.
He is. And then after that, he starts talking to the bartender and just bullies the shit out of him and just notices the boxing gloves behind the bar. And it's like, whose boxing gloves are these? I see lots of boxing memorabilia, lots of boxing gloves. Who's the boxer? And the bartender's like, I'm the boxer. And he's like, oh, so you're a tough guy then? Are you like, yeah. And the bartender's like, yeah, tough enough, you know? And then, of course, Seagal punches out that guy.
Yes. And Sammy is there. Sammy, combing your hair like a girl, Sammy, is at the bar.
That's what we should call him, combing your hair like a girl.
And he is throughout this constantly saying, oh, he's nothing without his gun and his badge, blah, blah, blah. So finally, Seagal drops the clip out of his gun, takes the one out of the chamber, and says, there, I don't have my gun anymore. Here's my badge. This is your prize. If you can take this badge from me. And Sammy offers these goons, $5,000 if they can take it from him?
$5,000, yeah.
And then we get that great line from the really biker-looking goon with this scraggly beard who says, Seagal comes up to him, says something, and that guy says, like, the only thing standing in your way is fear and common sense. And then Seagal hits him in the face with a pool ball wrapped in a bar rag, breaks his nose.
And breaks several of his teeth, which he's just
yes.
Oh, you broke my teeth. Like, he's like picking his teeth up off the pool table, just like, you broke my teeth.
Just so the audience knows what happened there.
There's a bunch of that as well, because there's another moment in the fight scene where a guy jumps up on a pool table and tries to attack him, and he kicks him in the balls, and he's like, "Oh, my balls, my balls."
I feel like that's another Steven Seagal thing. Like, let him. I feel like he's got to be there. Like, tell the audience how much it hurts when I hit you.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And then we also get in this sequence, in the many fights in this sequence, where you're just throwing people around. And the guy he bullies the most is like the guy he stuffs into a phone box. He does that twice. So like in his like first circuit of the bar, he just stuffs this random guy into a phone box. And then after he's fought like basically the whole bar, he stuffs that same guy back into the phone box again after he's only just escaped the phone box.
And that guy's never, that's it. That guy never like does anything in return.
He never attacks him. He never says a line. He just gets rammed into a phone box a couple of times. Like, he might have just been an actual guy just getting a drink there. There's no sense that he is one of the mafioso goons or whatever. He's just like, what? Why? What?
I mean, but that again is just the thing where it's like you're in the neighborhood, so you're fair game.
That is true. And we should mention as well, in this fight scene, there's a really cool moment where a character called Sticks is kind of called upon by the gangsters. They're like, hey, he's obviously just sitting around waiting for fights, waiting to be called on, because he's sitting with his arms crossed, being like, just looking all broody. And so he's waiting for his big moment, and is actually played by legendary martial artist Dan Inosanto, who was one of Bruce Lee's students and one of the only certified Jeet Kune Do instructors. So he is something of a martial arts legend. Presumably that was a kind of Seagal cast, that one. And he sticks, and he's got 2 sticks, and basically Seagal fights with his. That's how those nicknames work. And then Seagal breaks the Poku in half, and they fight. They do a kind of stick fight, and it's pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome, yeah. And it's yeah.
I mean, presumably, like, between the two of them, between Seagal and Inosanto, they probably did the choreography for that themselves, and it's well done.
And it's kind of disappointing that Styx never comes back, because he seems like the coolest goon out of all the goons.
Yeah, he is he has no lines, but he is by far the most charismatic goon. He just sits on his stool, waiting for fights, waiting for somebody to go, hey, Styx, get that guy. And then he gets calmly, he doesn't rush, calmly gets off his stool, picks up his stick, and gets to work.
I like to think Styx had good enough sense as this plot is getting more insane to just step away and not get killed by Seagal.
That's a fair point. Yeah, Styx might be the most sensible of all the goons. He was like... And, he's the kind of character that you think as well, that he's like a martial artist, and he might have a kind of sense of honor of being like, well, he defeated me in a fight, and now I must go.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's definitely the only guy in this bar with any honor.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the biker guy in particular does not learn his learn his lesson in this movie at all. He just keeps thinking he's a real tough guy and just keeps getting his ass kicked by everyone.
And he looks like a real biker. I don't know. He looks really grungy.
There is a real kind of grizzled look to that guy that's like, he looks like he probably a Hell's Angel at some point, not just a kind of dressed up to look like a biker. He just rocked up on set like that, and they were like, yep, you're hired.
Yeah, you'll do.
You got the part.
So then we get, does he beat up Sammy before he beats up Vinny, or it's vice versa?
Yes, he beats up Sammy first. And I'm pretty sure he beats up Sammy first. After beating up the bar, he comes right. He pushes the guy into the phone box again. He comes around to Sammy again, who's still bizarrely still threatening him, pretty much in the same way, even after seeing people he probably suspects are tougher than him get their asses handed to them, and yet Sammy still feels oddly confident in this situation.
Well, he is a made guy, apparently.
Oh, yeah, that is true. So, therefore, he is one of Don Vitrio's men. So, he's pretty confident that Seagal, because he was part of the neighborhood and kind of hung out with wise guys when he was younger, that he would follow the code and not hit him because he's a made man, which doesn't work out well for him.
No, it doesn't. Steven Seagal pulls another asshole move of kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to walk away and then spin around 360 and punch you in the nose. Classic Seagal. And then he starts picking on Vinny and, just beats him up, breaks his nose. Vinny tries to go for a gun, slams his hand in the bar. And that's Vinny. That's Vinny Cook. And then we get my favorite part of this whole scene. We get one more shot after clearly Steven Seagal's beat everyone up. No one likes him, and no one is giving any hint that they know where Richie is or that they will tell if they do know. Yeah. And we get like one final shot of him walking out the bar, still going like, anybody seen Richie? I'm going to keep coming back. And it's like, I don't think that's going to get you anywhere.
No, this is the thing throughout the movie. He's like the poster boy for police brutality. He's a great movie character, but if you transplanted this to real life in any way, you'd be like, this is the worst cop.
Yes, I did think that as I was watching it, is like, there's probably a lot of cops that watched this movie and imitated this and just ruined the world.
Yeah, because I mean, like, he does some other terrible shit coming up.
Yeah, but his MO is just, I'm gonna strong arm and throw people around, Like there's a scene we'll get to later, but there's parts where he's just going through people's like offices and literally just throwing papers around as if that's like gonna get him somewhere. And you're just like, you're the worst detective ever.
Yeah, I mean that's the way to ingratiate yourself with people, you know. That people are likely to give up information where you just fuck up their shit.
I mean, but again, you say that, but we don't know that we're not from the neighborhood.
Yes, that is true. We don't understand. We are not from the neighborhood. And yeah, so I think this is a point where we get the investigation montage that you mentioned that makes it feel like the film happens over a couple of days, but actually the investigation montage of people looking for Richie, various people looking for Richie, the police, Gino, the mob. And we also apparently takes place over like an hour or two.
Yeah, which is weird. And maybe it's stuff that they cut, because looking at it, a lot of it did seem like it was part of a scene, part of the same scene that they maybe just made into a montage, like that raid and stuff. But we do get to see a very young John Leguizamo get slapped around for a second by William Forsythe.
Yes, he does have a very small cameo as a character named, credited as Boy in Alley.
Yeah, and you literally blink and you'll miss him.
Yeah, you really have to look out for it. I mean, like, the main reason I was looking out for him was I have been reading Vern's Seagalology book, and it's mentioned in the Out for Justice chapter. And I've watched Out for Justice a bunch of times, hadn't really noticed it, and so I was looking out for that scene, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that is John Leguizamo. That's cool."
And he's gone.
And he's gone. Oh, talking about, you know, kind of known faces that are in this film, we should have mentioned that the police captain, Seagal's police captain, is played by none other than Law and Order's Jerry Obark.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you know, obviously well known for playing a policeman. I also remember him for his role in Murder, She Wrote, a show I was a fan of as a kid.
Yeah, he's a great second string to Seagal. He gives it that kind of, he's just a perfect police lieutenant character. But he doesn't get as many good one-liners as some of the guys, like O'Malley, unfortunately. Yeah.
Although, weirdly, I want to mention this as well, right? So on the back of the DVD, it suggests that Jerry Obark is his partner, not his captain. Like this on the back of the DVD, it basically says that Brooklyn-born and raised cop Gino Fellino has seen many changes in the neighborhood, quotation marks. One sad one is that boyhood adversary and criminal scum Richie, William Forsythe, has turned the local streets into a war zone. He's a mad dog unleashed, who Gino is more than willing to send to an eternal obedience school. Who wrote this? But he and his world-weary partner, Jerry Obark, of TV's Law and Order, must catch Richie first, which suggests it's like a buddy movie or something, which it's not. And then it ends with this line, which is genuinely amazing. With Seagal's remarkable Aikido skills commanding center stage, Out for Justice is out of sight.
Yes, and that's actually true. That's the best review of the movie.
In that last line, yeah, for sure, that's accurate. But the previous line about him and his world-weary partner, I was like, have they watched the movie? Like, that's...
The only true thing is the world weariness, because
because Jerry Obark characters are always world weary.
Yeah, but he says the world weary cop line at some point. I can't remember the scene, but he does say, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, I can't remember the exact moment in the movie like you where that is said, but yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
Classic.
Typical DVD lies.
Typical B-movie DVDs. Getting the plots wrong. I'm sure that happens in a bunch of Seagal movies, you know. The DVDs don't add up.
Well, all that's important is they mention the neighborhood once again.
Oh, yeah. In quotation marks, as always, you know, the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Coming up, we get another just, like, absurd scene in this movie where Richie is driving along with his goons. Well, he's been driven by one of his goons, and a couple other goons are in the back of the car. And Robert Lasardo's character, who gets way more screen time than he gets in Hard to Kill, is talking about the mouse problem in his apartment.
Yes.
And then there's just this whole scene that's just this conversation about like him having this mouse problem, and then like a couple of the other goons saying like, you should just shoot the mouse, just kill the person below you, that's fine, and him trying to explain the impracticality of going around your house shooting a mouse, and then the scene is ended by Richie just being like, shut the fuck up about the fucking mouse.
which you're waiting for the whole conversation. It's funny. The shooting through the floor, though, is funny because that's one thing we did forget to mention about the bar scene just before this. There's a moment where Seagal fires around through the ceiling, and Vinny says, like, what are you doing? Like, somebody could be up there. What do you think you're doing? And Seagal's like, nobody's up there. And Vinny's like, how do you know that? Did you check up there? And Seagal's like, no. And you're like, yeah, that's pretty damn reckless, dude.
Yeah, I kind of, again, that's just a great Seagal asshole moment where he's so confident that his opinion is correct. It is the actual truth that it doesn't matter. He can fire through the ceiling because he knows no one's up there, just through his sheer Zen power.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I was gonna say there's like a Buddha. He is Buddha. He is the asshole Buddha of the world in that scene.
I now want there to be a movie. Steven Seagal is asshole Buddha.
That would be amazing. He's got the figure for it these days.
Yes, for sure he does.
But back to shut the fuck up
about that fucking mouse. I think again, we should point out that William Forsythe is genuinely great in this movie. He's really just the best thing in it, basically. And his performance is so off the chain. He's so convincing as like this drugged up lunatic. And the absolute best thing about this scene in the car, about this fucking mouse, is like you can just see him like boiling inside, like just through his eyes, like in the scene. He doesn't say anything, but you can just see from his posture, from the way he's holding himself, from the anger building and building inside him. And it's really quite a fun scene.
Yeah, pretty much every scene he's in is like that too, where he's just so good. Like you said, you're just waiting for him to explode. I'm worried about like every other actor with William Forsythe, because I'm like, I think he might actually hit you or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're like, you do have that kind of fear. But we kind of move away. We move away back onto Gino's mission for revenge. Oh, again, he has a brief detour again because he holds another meeting with Don Vitrio. He meets up with Don Vitrio at a restaurant. He then proceeds to insult him a bunch of times, and that's basically pretty much the end of that scene. But then after that, we get one of Steven Seagal's couple of attempts throughout the movie of serious acting.
Yes, and the moral of this monologue that he's about to give, I don't know what it was supposed to be.
No, it didn't seem to have a real point, did it? So basically, He tells this very long-winded story about this guy who was known in the neighborhood as Uncle Pino, obviously some big mafia goon, and then he takes young Seagal to the cinema, but basically beats up a guy, sticks a guy in his trunk of his car, and keeps him there. And young Seagal, he's supposed to be like 9 years old in this story, starts worrying about this guy in the trunk that he's died, and convinces Uncle Pino to let the guy go, and he opens the trunk up, and the guy just like shoots off and runs away. And Yeah, he tells this in a very long-winded and convoluted fashion, and then basically suggests that this was the thing that made him want to be
Yeah.
a mafioso wise guy, but then he became a cop. And it's
Yeah.
not explained in the monologue why the sudden change of heart. It's just like, well,
No.
God works in funny ways.
Well, and there's another. I don't know if it was before this or after this, because there's another point where he's talking to a mafioso guy, and he's talking about like, I don't think I'm better than you. I just like I wanted this, and I worked really hard for it. And it seems to be about him becoming a cop, but it's also very muddled. But yeah, I forgot. That's the point of the story, is that he wants to be a wise guy. And the guy, I don't know who the guy is he's talking to. I don't remember his name, but he has a great line too, because Seagal says, yeah, I don't know, like fate just happens. And that guy says something like, well, maybe God's a puppeteer and we're just on the other end of the strings.
Yeah. But like the story would make way more sense if he's talking about his origins of how he became a wise guy. But he's not. Yeah. He's a cop. So like it just doesn't make any sense.
It just feels like what you mentioned about the script of, it feels like them trying to do some deep character development, but they don't have any idea how. So so this is what we get.
Yeah. Because like it kind of, yeah, I mean, the thing that the monologue reminds me of, obviously it's not written as well, and it's from like this other monologue is obviously from a much better movie, but it's kind of like the opening narration to Goodfellas, where Henry Hill's being like, I always wanted to be a gangster, I always knew I wanted to be a gangster. But like he's not. He's a fucking cop.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, it feels like the whole underlying thing they're trying to get across that never really works is like Richie and Gino like were coming from the same neighborhood,
and they're kind of cut from the same cloth. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have been the same person, but they weren't. But yeah.
Yeah, but the conjoiner of like why that happened, why they chose those forking paths, is not explained at all.
No. Well, and it's also not established that they were like friends, which I feel like would have been more poignant had they been like really close childhood friends that grew apart.
Yeah, but again, this is a sort of thing that might be in the 2-hour version of this movie. I don't know, because there is a couple of references to it being like, oh, it's this guy from the neighborhood. I knew this guy from the neighborhood. And it is clearly established that Seagal had some sort of relationship with Richie's father. But yeah, not that they were kind of close buddies. That, like, I think there is a kind of small suggestion that, like, basically Bobby, Gino, and Richie all grew up together and were friends, but it's not. You kind of have to read between the lines to kind of pick that up. There's just like tiny little clues that might have been the case, but then at the same time, it also just feels like they were people who kind of knew each other in the neighborhood. They weren't necessarily friends.
And if you're watching a Steven Seagal film, you're not someone that's interested in reading between the lines. You want something a little bit more concrete. But I do hope that the other 30 minutes on the cutting room floor from the director's cut is just more Steven Seagal serious monologues about his childhood.
Yeah, I mean, we get another one not long after this. But we got a couple other things that we have to talk about before we get there. Because our favorite thing to talk about, Steven Seagal being an asshole. So, like, after this, Steven Seagal is back on his path of vengeance. And his next stop is to visit Richie's sister, played in an early role by Gina Gershon. And, he basically interrogates her. Well, basically bullies her. Like, kind of tosses her about. Like, he doesn't toss her about in the way that he tosses the villains about, but he basically grabs her by the arm and, like, kind of drags her about the place. And goes into her office, throws papers about her office, goes through her drawers, picks a gun up out her drawer that he's just like, yeah, this is probably unregistered. I can probably arrest you for this. And just shouts at her, threatens at her, fucks up her shit, and as all the best police officers do.
And what you have to love is, you said it before in the bar scene about Vinny, like, we get the feeling that no one actually, like, Richie does not seem like he's told anyone what he's doing. He seems totally unhinged. And she seems like she genuinely doesn't know anything, but she's going to jail.
Yes, she's going to jail. And he doesn't even arrest her for, like, the thing he states in the first place. He just makes up that she's, like, a prostitute. Just like, you know, like, yeah, I'm arresting you for this. And then he bullies somebody else to be like, is she a sex worker? Yeah, I've seen her on the streets.
For $10.
For $10. And then he, like, mocks her for that, of being like, you think you could get at least 15, you know? Like,
it's pretty ridiculous. That whole bit is like, I feel like you can't get away with this.
No, I feel like somebody would step in there. It just seemed pretty damn ridiculous.
Before that, though, there is one key plot point in that club. Before he bullies Gina Gershon, one of the waitresses brings him a napkin with the name Roxanne written on it, which, who's that? We have to find out. And there's also, like, another great little dialogue in there where he's talking to Gina Gershon, and he asks who that waitress is, and she says, who? And he says, the one with the nipples that could dial a phone.
Yes, that was right.
You just can't beat that dialogue.
That again, you do wonder, is that a Seagal improvised line? Was that in the script? I mean, to be fair, you know, like, the guy who wrote the script was the man who wrote Roadhouse, so it could be his, you know, line for all we know.
It could be either. But the other thing to me that made it funny was she is, like, dressed in a kind of Playboy bunny type outfit, but you can't see anyone's nipples.
No,
so it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Like a lot of Seagal lines, there's not a lot of logic to it.
But whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so his monologue doesn't make sense. You know, but then again, lots of characters. It's like we established that Sammy guy, his initial asshole line didn't really make sense either. So yeah, a lot of the lines in the movie don't necessarily add up, even though they kind of like, well, that sounds kind of cool, or that kind of sounds kind of funny, but they're not necessarily got any real logic behind them.
No, there's no logic, but it is all entertaining.
Very entertaining. And we get more of, like, kind of everybody's an asshole in this movie. We get more of Richie being an asshole. He's hiding out with a wheelchair-bound friend who owns a garage. And he just immediately comes in and is just a complete dickhead to him. Just, like, spinning him around in the wheelchair, pushing him about, kind of mocking him for not having working lower apparatus.
It's pretty, this is maybe the most gratuitous, we have to show you how bad this villain is scene. That's kind of what it feels like, because there's no, like, reason for him to go there other than he says, like, we need to all get drugs and party.
That is true. It is, like, another one of, like, those classic, how evil is this guy? Well, let's show you. I think that and the woman who he shoots early in the movie, and you know, like, those are the kind of two scenes that do feel just, like, completely gratuitous, of, like, they have no other purpose, kind of plot purpose, other than, like, this is how evil Richie is.
Although, once again, I mean, the only saving grace probably is William Forsythe, because he is so convincing that you're like, okay, I guess I buy that this guy is totally has no plan. So I guess that's what he would be doing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And yeah, this seems to be the only part in the movie where the police know where Richie is for some reason, because there's a police raid on the garage, which it is never fully explained whether this is just a police raid on the garage because, like, they're selling hot cars and it's just it so happens that Richie's there, or they've tracked Richie down, because nobody mentions it. Like, the raid isn't mentioned, and as far as I'm aware,
it just comes out of nowhere.
Just kind of comes out the blue.
But it does just make Richie look even worse because he assumes that possibly the wheelchaired friend has ratted him out, and as he's running out, just shoots him.
Yeah, just to show just what an evil dickhead he is.
Yeah, that and the moment where the woman gets shot at the beginning were pretty shocking. I was like, okay, Jesus, gonna shoot that guy? All right.
Yeah, I would say that they're probably the most shocking instance of violence in the movie, along with the woman, the prostitute that gets punched in the face right at the start of the movie. Like, those are bits of violence. Most of the violence in the movie is kind of over the top and very Seagalian, and like you can kind of, it just washes over you. But those are the kind of 3 moments that you kind of wince a little.
Yeah. This isn't an important scene for the plot, but did we already pass the point where Seagal goes to buy dog food?
Yeah, we did pass the point. Seagal goes to buy dog food again. That just pops up. That's just after. I think that's just after like the butcher shop fight. Not long after that, he kind of stops off to buy some supplies for the puppy.
Okay.
There's
it's only notable because there's great dialogue where Seagal says, he's like, do you have any puppy dog food? And the guy shows him it. And Seagal's like, okay, just so long. It's like, this isn't from New Jersey, right? I don't want any radioactive stuff. And the guy's like, I don't blame you. You're just like, and we're all just like, that's the neighborhood.
that's the humor of the neighborhood. Yeah. We should. Well, like, I'm glad we mentioned it now because, like, yeah, that more bizarre dialogue. Yes, because as everybody knows, if you get any food from New Jersey, it's immediately poisoned with radiation. Yeah. Although, actually, fast forwarding to where we are in the movie, we get more puppy action because Seagal stops off his ex-wife. There's a reappearance of the puppy, and they talk about how cute the puppy is, and will he be keeping the puppy? And he doesn't know. So tenterhooks on that one. Will he keep the puppy? That's one we all really want to know. Then his ex-wife says, does he have time for an espresso? Which apparently he does. Again, won't be strayed from his path of vengeance, but, he's Italian-American. Of course he has time to stop for an espresso, because we're all just big stereotypes in this movie.
That's how it works. This is the point also where, as an audience member, you may go, oh yeah, he has that puppy.
Yes. That keeps appearing.
Beating and murdering people. I guess that puppy was just waiting in the car.
Yeah. Because he comes out the car and he was just like, I forgot about this thing. So it suggests that he's been driving around all this time and just leaving it in the car and coming back. And then, not a responsible puppy owner is Detective Gino Fellino, apart from being general asshole and poster boy for police brutality. Despite his animal lover status, kind of ropey as a puppy owner. Here also we get another bit of great Seagal acting. He really wants to act in this movie. And we get another monologue about his father and the way he was raised and how he saw his father become obsolete. His job became obsolete, and he was just very sad about that. He used to have this car that used to sell things off, but then people started buying things at the supermarkets and all that, the cheaper variations and all that. And he used to have this little bell to bring people to the car, and that bell was the loneliest sound I've ever heard, says Seagal. Obviously business is lost, and then they told people that his father died of cancer, but he thinks he actually died of broken heart. And those lines might sound touching, but coming out
They're
of
not.
Seagal's mouth. Fucking hilarious.
It's so good. This monologue is amazing. And there's also that weird subtext of like then people started buying disposable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a weird like anti-capitalist corporate
Oh yeah. Sticking up for the underdog and the mom and pop shops and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. But there you go. There you go. Some nice anti-corporate commentary there for you. The great thing about this monologue as well, apart from its natural hilarity, is that it is so touching, so moving, that his not quite ex-wife calls off the divorce on the spot. At that moment, she realizes that Detective Gino Fellino, the great detective that he is, the great man that he is, the great animal lover that he is a man that she still has to have in her life. So the divorce is off.
Yes. And of course, at this moment, we as the audience members have been dying for this reconciliation.
For this character who has previously turned up in all of 2 scenes.
But of course, at that moment of almost satisfaction, Richie's thugs arrive to kill Gino. And
that is true. And another great action scene where, one guy he sees through a window, he shoots that guy with a shotgun through the window. He shoots up a bunch of other guys. He shoots one guy kind of blindly round a corner, it was always fun to see that. Just he's so confident of his shot that he doesn't have to look or anything. Just pop the gun round the corner and that's him. That guy dead.
That's reminiscent of his marksmanship in Marked for Death.
Marked for Death.
That hooker blindly.
Yeah. He just comes around that corner. He just shoots off the gun, just not looking at anything, just firing off a million bullets randomly. You know, the thing about this one in kind of comparing and contrasting, he hits the mark first time in this one. He just gets the guy. He looks blindly in the corner and shoots. And he gets the guy. Whereas that hooker, he shoots about 11 times and hits her twice.
Well, and the difference there being, I guess, that the hooker was in Colombia. And that might have thrown him off. I don't know.
Yeah. He's more accurate in the neighborhood.
Yes. It all comes back to the neighborhood. He also, the last thug.
Yes. You can take the last thug.
Yes. The great moment, the last thug drops his weapon and says, oh, you're not going to shoot an unarmed guy. And Seagal says, no, of course not. And proceeds to throw him through a window and off of a fire escape.
Oh, it's so good. So after that shootout, we kind of cut back to the club, and Vinny, who is probably the unluckiest character in the movie, because throughout the movie we've just seen him bullied. We've seen him bullied twice by mafia guys, and obviously once by Detective Gino, and now we see him being bullied by Richie, just pushed about, and generally being called a pussy by him for not being able to take out Steven Seagal despite having loads of guys, and that's I kind of feel sorry for Vinny. Vinny seems like a bit of an asshole, but I feel like he maybe doesn't deserve all of this. I mean, he really does get kind of manhandled and broken throughout the movie.
Yeah, and he's not as big a piece of shit as Richie, at least.
No, that's true. And actually, one of the other things I did want to mention, because just in terms of the acting in this movie, we didn't really mention that a couple of times we see interactions with Gino and Richie's father, who is just credited as Mr. Madano, who's played by Dominic Chianese, who most people will know for his role as Uncle Junior in The Sopranos, if you're a fan of that show. And he is the other kind of really good actor in this movie. And you actually really believe him when he's talking about his son and how sad he is about how off the rails Richie has gone and how much he breaks his heart that like his watching his son become a monster. You know, like pretty much most other people in this movie, when they try to be heartrending or try to give emotion, you don't really buy it. But like he is one of the few actors. I mean, basically William Forsythe, Jerry Orbach, and him are the ones who give actual proper decent good acting performances.
Yeah, I would agree. And he feels particularly like the only person though that like that stuff where he's talking about his son and he's genuinely sad does feel like the only realistic stuff, and the stuff that like, okay, that's probably what the that's probably what the movie would have been like if it really was gonna be this mean streets kind of a thing.
Yeah, because pretty much everything else feels relatively weightless, but when he's delivering his dialogue and he's talking about how crestfallen he is and how he's worked hard all his life and, seeing his son come to this and kind of knowing that the world would be better off without his son, you actually are properly drawn into that and believe that, and it is given a kind of real emotional weight that pretty much nothing else in the movie is.
Yeah. And just as you're feeling feelings, it's time to move on to more action.
more action. That's what we're going to get. Yeah, because we get like a shootout in the club between Richie's guys and some mob guys. Like we get some more classic the biker guy being a real dickhead to everyone.
Yeah, he hasn't learned a goddamn thing.
No,
he's still bloody and missing teeth, and he's still like acting like he's tough.
That's what I love about this character. He's just learned no lessons at all. Yeah, like you say, he's still like, I mean, he's not cleaned himself up from earlier. He's still bleeding out the mouth, carrying his broken teeth around, and yet still being a complete dickhead to everybody that talks to him, including mafia guys who could, easily wipe him out. You would assume, but he clearly has just the sort of confidence he has that I've never had. If I had an ounce of this man's confidence, then I'd probably be going further in life.
Yes. Well, and it makes me wonder why that guy isn't like best friends with Richie, because they're both on the same planet of just craziness.
Oh dear. And then I think it's kind of at this point we've Richie does a bit more investigating. We get a scene with him and the waitress Terry, who'd earlier passed him that little thing with Roxanne written on it, and we kind of discover what's going on. We've discovered the things with the picture. So the picture shows Bobby basically having sex with Richie's girlfriend. We think it's his girlfriend, and that seems to have been Richie's motive for killing him, and for killing this girlfriend, Roxanne.
And those Polaroids are kind of hilarious looking to me. I don't know, just them posing.
Yeah, it looks like kind of super staged. Like they've had. Yeah, they were like, oh, we're going to have sex in this style just for this photo. Like it really does look like a kind of posed for. And it's weird. It's the staging of those Polaroids is kind of hilarious.
And apparently that Roxanne is Julie Strain, who was some like Playboy model or something like that.
All right, okay.
So fun fact, she doesn't get any lines.
No, she does not get any lines. She's basically just naked in those pictures, and then we find her dead and naked in a bed. And that's it. but Gino, being the respectful guy that he is, like, covers her up.
Hey, he's classy.
He's a classy man.
And not only that, he's also like an expert on decomposition, because this is where we get him mentioning that by the state of her body's rigor mortis, she must have died like 24 hours ago. And this is where we're reminded that this is all one night.
Yeah, that is that is true. Yes, I mean, obviously, Gino, animal lover, master martial artist, master linguist, CSI. He can do anything. Animal lover. He's amazing.
He can pull off a beret.
He can pull off a beret, a beret and cut off shirt combo. I mean, not many people on the planet could do the same.
No, I was going to mention that outfit reminds me of the Guardian Angels. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're like a.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in New York, that like civilian sort of vigilante almost kind of group. Yes,
that's right. I wonder if they were inspired by this film.
Or if he was inspired by them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. But yeah, I am vaguely aware. That I can picture them in my head. Yes. So yeah, that's kind of a weird coincidence. I'm not sure at all. Further research maybe needed on that. I don't know if we can
yeah, maybe we'll do a bonus episode on berets.
Yeah. Well, I think we could definitely do a bonus episode on Steven Seagal's fashion choices throughout the ages, or maybe obviously sticking to our remit just throughout the 90s. But that is still we still got a lot to dig into right there.
That would be amazing. Yeah. But we've got to get back to this.
Yeah, we got to get back to this movie. We're real near the end, guys. We're real near the end. So basically, Richie goes. No, wait. So Gino goes to visit Bobby's wife, and then it is implied that it was Bobby's wife who sent the picture to Richie. The incriminating picture that got her husband killed.
Yeah, which seems like a pretty convoluted plot we've got going here.
It is. I mean, for a relatively straightforward mission of vengeance film, yeah, there's a bunch of kind of convoluted subplots here that kind of really muddy things up a little. But and yeah, it's not. Again, it's one of the many things in this movie where it's not clearly stated. It's implied, and you kind of pick up on the conversation that we think that's what happened. She denies it, and then it seems like she admits it at the end of the scene, but maybe not.
Yeah, but like it also doesn't matter that much why he killed him either, because like he killed his partner.
Yeah, that's what we care about.
No,
that's a very fair point. That is a very fair point. So Richie's still on the warpath. He goes back to Juliana Margulies' place. Her character is called Rika, by the way. I should have mentioned that earlier. And he wants to party. He's still wanting to party. He still wants to do more drugs. He orders hookers to be phoned up for his men because he wants to be a good employer. Like that's he wants to be.
He's got to reward Robert Lasorda, who is still in the movie, right? At this point,
yeah. He's still there. He's still in the movie. He survived right till very near the end of the movie. And in when we cut back to when the party is swinging, we see a bunch of other goons have appeared, and eagle-eyed horror fans might notice that one of those goons is none other than Kane Hodder.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, he is. Like when Seagal bursts in and starts shooting people, he's the second guy that he shotguns to death.
Well, that's good because, yeah, it would have been better if Kane Hodder was the final villain.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But no, he's just in it for like 2 seconds. Basically, you see him sitting on a couch when everybody's having a party. And then, when Steven Seagal bursts through the door, he jumps up to shoot him, and he gets shotgunned to death by Seagal, and then that's him. So it really is like a blink and you miss it role. He is listed in the credits as one of the stuntmen in the film, so I don't know if he did more that way in terms of stunts. But yes, that's.
And this
part
is
of the filming.
The first time Gino uses the shotgun, right? I only bring that up because in the right after Richie.
No, there's a scene. The scene where they attack his wife's his reconciled wife's apartment. Like he shoots. Got a shot. He's got the shotgun there.
Okay.
Because he shoots that first guy out the window. With a shotgun.
Yeah, you're right.
So he has that shotgun in that scene. Don't know, shotgun previously hadn't appeared, so I don't know where he picked it up from, but yeah.
Well,
just lying around.
He had it when he first saw Jerry Orbach, because whenever his partner gets killed, he's got that bit where he's like, let me just give me an unmarked car and I'll take the shotgun and I'll do it myself. I'll take care of this my way.
that is right. Yeah, fair point. So yeah, he starts, and we should also mention, I'm not sure if this is the Kane Hodder character, but a character off screen, which might be the Kane Hodder character, shoots Steven Seagal in the stomach to literally no effect.
But
it barely phases him.
This is the climax, though, so we've got to up the stakes.
We do indeed, but I mean, it really doesn't slow him down at all. But then again, you know what? This is a totally ridiculous action movie, and we get some more great ridiculous action, and that's really all we want from this film. So we basically, Richie, in very quick order, takes out pretty much all of Richie's men, and the biker guy dies in the most hilarious fashion because he is pulled through this thing with all these kind of wooden slats, and then the biker guy basically goes to fight Gino, and then Gino kicks him in the sternum so hard that blood comes out his mouth, and then it's implied that he's dead after that. Because he doesn't move and he doesn't reappear. So we're assuming he's died by the sheer power of Seagal's boot.
It makes sense. And it's kind of what he deserved.
Yeah, that guy was an asshole. Fuck that guy. And then, like in all of Seagal's films, the final showdown is heavily freighted in Seagal's favor. Last time out in Marked for Death, Screwface at least got a couple of shots in and managed to bash his head in a couple of times, got a minor upper hand for all of 2 seconds, but he did manage to get the upper hand. But this is a completely one-sided fight. Richie comes out a bathroom being like, "I'm out of bullets," you can't shoot me. And then basically Seagal does the exact same thing he did in the bar. He takes the clip out of his gun, and he's like, I don't need this, and just starts absolutely demolishing Richie, just throwing him around. He throws him around the bedroom. Then he throws him around the living room. Williams Forsythe very, very briefly gets the upper hand for less than 2 seconds as he sticks a finger in the bullet hole in Seagal's stomach.
And that barely phases him.
He just takes his hand right out, and he just goes right back to just throwing him around the living room, just putting him into bookcases and various furniture. And you basically, everything that Richie picks up is then turned against him. He's like, he picks up a table leg, the table leg's taken off him, and he's swatted in the head. He crawls up to a cooker and he picks up a frying pan. He's then strangled and hit with the same frying pan. And then after that, and Richie by this stage is just drenched in blood after being thrown around the bedroom, the kitchen, and the kitchen being thrown into all of the furniture, and then having this humiliation of being twatted in the head with a table leg and a frying pan. Then he gets punched in the face a couple of times, and then the final indignity, he crawls to try and get a corkscrew, and that corkscrew is immediately implanted in his forehead.
Yes. It's like probably the weakest part of the movie in a way, just because William Forsythe has no chance. And this is when you really notice, if you hadn't noticed, that Richie is a bit overweight. And he shouldn't be so enthusiastic about fighting hand to hand.
That is true. I love that both in the bedroom and in the I think it's when you get to the kitchen, there's a couple of times Steven Seagal like backs off and does like a little kind of martial arty pose before like just stomping a mud hole in his ass. As if Forsythe has some kind of chance where he's going to put up a fight, but no. That is true. I mean, like they could have done something. I mean, it's not like William Forsythe is a small guy. He's of a relatively similar height. Seagal's about 6'5". William Forsythe must be like similar, kind of maybe 6'4" or something. Like at least maybe slightly shorter than them, so maybe like 6'3", 6'4". And, like, even though he is overweight, it kind of gives him this kind of imposing looking figure. And they could have made him like some sort of like, just kind of low down, dirty, kind of bare knuckle boxer type, just rough and ready, against the kind of more refined martial arts or something. But obviously Seagal's ego won't let, that happen, of like his opponent being it's not happening in any way a threat. And it's funny because like Screwface is a scrawnier guy, but like he did pose more of a threat than Richie ends up posing. And Richie is probably the craziest villain we've had thus far too, like seemingly maybe the most dangerous person, because he has no plan or anything. Yeah, that is thing. It's true. It's one of the things that makes him a more unusual villain. There is no real purpose to all of this. There is no thought behind what will happen. There's no scheming. There's just, he wanted to kill this guy. He wanted to kill his ex-girlfriend for them, and he wanted to do drugs, fuck around, and kill people. And that's all he wanted to do. He should have had a better climax. But I do love right after this when... or do you want to take the postscript? Yes. So okay. William Forsythe has just been foreheaded to the face with a corkscrew and is quite dead. And this mafioso shows up who was there for one of Steven's monologues. And Steven Seagal takes his gun and just shoots Richie about 5 or 6 more times just to make sure he's dead. And implied to like give the mafioso guy the credit for killing him or something. Yes. Yeah. Which is just a great moment. Great extreme overkill. Absolutely. And then we think we're pretty much done. And Gino's... but wait, Kyle, the audience at home is definitely wondering what's happened with the puppy. Like, yes. How can we go home happy without knowing how this puppy subplot has, how it'll all be tied up? Well, we're gonna find out. That wasn't just a throwaway scene. We are at Coney Island, I think. And Gino and his wife are together. They're going to get a chili cheese dog or something. And we see the bumper sticker on this car in like 3 quick, rapid close-ups. And it's the guy who threw the dog out.
And so, of course, Gino has to go ask him if he threw the dog out. And of course, this guy must be like related to the biker guy because he's a total asshole. He says, I'm going to, throw you out of the car in a garbage bag too, Steven Seagal. But he's not. He's going to get roundly just kicked in the balls. And then this little dog is going to run over and pee on the guy's face. And then we walk into the sunset.
Yeah. And that's it. Like Steven Seagal finishes with a line about like, looks like it'll be a police dog yet.
Yes.
And that's how the movie ends.
And then the credits are like a highlight reel of the movie.
Yes, but funnily enough, weirdly, only a highlight reel of the movie up until the bar brawl scene, where he beats the guys up with the pool ball and all that, and then the famous, have any of you guys seen Richie? After the whole, he's pretty much proved that the whole bar has not seen him, but he's still shouting about it as he's heading out the bar. We should have mentioned as well, as he killed Richie, he goes, "That's for Bobby," which seems like pretty perfunctory, given that it's. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty, he doesn't. He really doesn't need to add that. Everybody knows it. Rich,
it's the whole movie.
That's what the whole movie was based on. That you're getting revenge for your partner. You do not need to state to the audience that is for Bobby.
It is another great Seagal acting moment, though, because he is like, I don't know what he's trying to do, but he's not succeeding. But it is a weird line delivery.
That is very true. And then, it's end credit roll with the highlights, and we get a kind of blues rock song called "Don't Stand in My Way." That was once again like the end credit song in Marked for Death, co-written by Steven Seagal. This time, it was sung by Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers Band.
Wow. And so once again, we think we're out of the movie and everything's over, but Steven Seagal is going to let us know he's still a man of many talents.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, we get another kind of parade of Seagal's ego, and we get a rock and blues rock tune to finish. So, usually at this point in the episode, we do best and worst. I don't know, I'll let you go first, Kyle. I'm not sure what my worst is going to be, because this movie's a fun time.
Yeah, I don't know what's bad about it. I mean, what is even the best? There's so many good things. I mean, obviously the bar scene is like the best, but you know what? Rewatching it, the new best is definitely the freeze frame when he's introed. Freeze frame, Steven Seagal, after he's thrown that guy through the windshield, is pretty great.
But that is pretty fucking awesome. Just the way the movie opens with that. I absolutely love that. And it's the way, like you say, it's the way it freeze frames, and then in big, bold, grey lettering, you get Steven Seagal emblazed across the screen, and then the title card comes down with a clank, "Out for Justice." It's great.
It's so damn good. I mean, I think we'll see when we get deeper into this podcast, but I'm like, that might be one of the best action movie intros there is. Thinking on it, it really stands out. Anyway.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It might get the award for best action movie title card.
Yes. When we do awards for this stuff.
Yeah, when we do awards, we get the awards. For sure. Like you, I'm struggling to think of like a thing I really hate about this movie. There's maybe, I don't know, like that opening scene, like the violence seems more ugly than the rest of the movie. It was maybe a little bit unnecessary. I just felt a little bit uncomfortable in that scene. But so maybe that. But there's so much great stuff, and like all the big fights in this movie, I think are really well done. The barroom brawl fight is obviously absolutely the best fight of Steven Seagal's career, and maybe one of the best fight scenes in the 90s. And the butcher shop scene's really fun, particularly that little moment where he takes the meat cleaver out of one guy's leg to implant it in another guy's hand. That was great. And the shootouts, there's a couple of good shootouts. The one at his wife's apartment, and the club shootouts, the shootout at the club is pretty decent as well. And yeah, it also has like a solid car chase, kind of all the action beats that you want from an action movie. And it's got all the kind of bizarre Seagalian touches that are a joy for any Seagal fan. So yeah, that's kind of our wrap up on Out for Justice. We definitely recommend that you check this one out. And if you've enjoyed listening to us talk about Out for Justice, be sure to join us next time when we will talk about Seagal's biggest hit, Under Siege. And also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please do rate, review, and subscribe to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, basically wherever you get your podcast from. Check us out. Give us a 5-star review. It, really helps with the old algorithm bullshit. But until next time, that's all from me, Scott. And it's been a pleasure. My co-host Kyle, the Mason Storm of the podcast. And remember, folks, just like Seagal would say, until next time, keep a superior attitude, superior state of mind.